We're going to look at it. So foul there on Indiana, on hold there. But then that is a technical.
That is a technical. Dead ball, contact technical.
It's a little surprising to see so many of these happen in one game because...
Oh, and I don't like the way Lexie Hull...
Remember this play from the last time the Indiana Fever and Minnesota Lynx met? Did Lexie Hull just get the ultimate revenge on Kayla McBride this time around? Last time these two shared the court, McBride's elbow smashed Hull in the face and the ref somehow penalized Hull. But in the Fever's massive win against Minnesota, Hull answered back and it left the crowd stunned. This wasn't just highlight reel material, it was personal redemption and proof of Indiana's grit. Want to know what this moment was and how this symbolizes the Fever's late-season surge and playoff push? Let's show some love for Lexie down in the comments below. Let's go.
Final score, Fever 83, Lynx 72. Indiana ends the regular season with an exclamation point. Fever have won 3 in a row as they enter the playoff.
How does a team actually survive when nearly half its rotation disappears? The Indiana Fever had to answer that the hard way. Game after game, players dropped to the injury report. Caitlin Clark gone with a groin injury. Sophie Cunningham sidelined by an MCL tear. Sydney Colson tore her ACL. Chloe BBY's knee wouldn't hold up. Ari McDonald fractured her foot. That list alone could make up a strong starting group. Yet all of them were suddenly stuck in street clothes. When you stack those absences together, you're left staring at one of the thinnest rosters in the league. And no amount of preseason planning could have helped Indiana prepare for that kind of collapse.
I know a lot of people will talk about Nafisa not playing, but I think they're really good without her. They're just a really great basketball team. So I think it was a big win for us because they set the bar high standard wise. We know what to expect when it comes to Minnesota Lynx, and so I think going into the playoffs, it was big for us because being able to know guarding Courtney Williams, knowing that her thing is a pull-up, knowing that now instead of not knowing that, it's big for us because we give ourselves a chance. And if they are the standard, we get to see where we are.
Then the announcement dropped. Caitlin Clark's season was officially over. The groin injury, first labeled as nagging, had taken a permanent spot on the medical sheet. This was supposed to be her rookie campaign that helped fast-track the Fever into national relevance. Instead, it ended in a press release, not a playoff debut. That kind of news can crush the spirit of a team, especially one already leaning on her energy to push them through hard stretches. Emotionally, it pulled at not only the roster but the fan base watching from Indiana to Iowa. Clark wasn't just a ticket seller, she was the heartbeat of the season, and losing her was the clearest sign yet that the Fever's playoff ambitions could vanish just as quickly.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been impressed with these guys since even the offseason, really the ones that I was able to work out with in the offseason, is how hard they work. There's a work ethic and there's a work style, and to approach everything in the same way, to be so energetic, enthusiastic, and dedicated every day. And I felt that way in training camp too. There weren't any days where I had to bring that out of them. So I think it's the nature of the women that we brought into this organization to continue to just bust their butts and play hard.
But while Clark cheered from the bench, someone else had to step into the void. That someone was Kelsey Mitchell. She didn't just score a little more, she became the centerpiece. She turned into the franchise's most productive scorer ever, surpassing even Tamika Catching's single-season numbers. For reference, she averaged more than 20 points per game across the season. 20 every night while carrying the ball handling duties, while defenses doubled her, while scout reports screamed her name at the top. Mitchell provided the offensive punch that kept the Fever's hopes alive when they should have flatlined.
Kind of all the other things like offensive rebounding that she can do.
Knocked away. Boston comes up with a steal. Here is Mitchell veering through the paint and lays it in.
She's so quick, and especially when she gets out in the open floor, you'll see her coming down. The quick left to right crossover just gets by. I thought she was sprinting. I didn't think she was lumbering.
It was a lumber sprint.
Up for the big girl.
Mitchell like a blur. That's a
Boston handled the other side of that responsibility. Scoring a steady 15 a night while pulling down more than 8 rebounds over her last 10 games doesn't just show effort, it shows reliability. In a season choked by absences, she gave Indiana its anchor. Her ability to body bigger forwards, clear the glass, and keep possessions alive became the team's insurance policy. Whatever mess the lineups turned into, Boston was the stabilizer in the middle. She set a new team record for single season rebounds, and you cannot underestimate how that steadiness kept the Fever's defense from fully collapsing.
Only 8 teams have ever done that. 7 of them went on to win the title. As Boston gets free and lays it in.
She will be on my first team.
Boston in the paint, sneaks through 2 and lays it in.
So ask yourself, after all that, could this team really still think about a playoff berth? By any logic, the answer should have been no, yet that's not where the story stopped. Instead of folding, they turned every setback into motivation. The frustration, the constant roster changes, the referees, it all became fuel. Players who were supposed to be role fillers became nightly contributors. Hardship signings put up double-digit performances. Bench players claimed bigger minutes with pride.
Fever done with the MVP, okay? Bow, bow, bow! Hell yeah. You already know what it is. Dubs in the chat, you already know what it is. Woo! You already know what it is. Let's go to the playoffs with some momentum, baby.
The turning point was clear. The Fever stopped seeing the injuries as a death sentence and started treating them as a rallying cry. That shift in perspective changed the way they played, and it reshaped the way fans viewed them. By the time the Minnesota Lynx came into the picture, the circumstances weren't the headline anymore. What mattered was their resilience and how it set the stage for one of the most emotional wins of the season. Why did this win over Minnesota feel like more than just another game? Because it was. Indiana wasn't just finishing out the calendar. They were staring down a team that sat at the top of the standings and had been considered the gold standard of the league all year. This wasn't about pride, it was about survival in the playoff picture, and the Fever didn't blink. They came into the night already locked into the postseason, but with the chance to climb, win, and depending on results elsewhere, the 6th seed was in play. That may not sound like much to a casual fan, but the difference matters. A higher seed means slightly more favorable matchups, a real chance to make noise, and proof you belong at the grown-ups table in the playoffs.
Before the playoffs start Sunday tonight, it's regular season game 44 of 44 for the Fever as they host the WNBA's best team in 2025, the Minnesota Lynx.
Tip, the Fever looked like they had a plan and the confidence to execute. A 10-0 run in the first quarter signaled that they weren't just hanging around. They were dictating pace. By halftime, they built a double-digit cushion and never once looked shaky about losing it. Minnesota tried to find a rhythm, but cold shooting mixed with Indiana's pressure defense turned possessions into wasted trips. The Lynx managed only 2 made threes out of 20 attempts, and every miss seemed to reinforce the sense that this was Indiana's night.
It'll be Alana Smith jumping it up against Aaliyah Boston. The ball is tipped, and it's time to hoop at Indy.
A 10-0 run to start this game for Indiana, and Minnesota wants a timeout.
Powers up top, tees it up, 3. It's good! Energy!
Kicks it out, Powers. You bet! Back-to-back threes from Ariel Powers.
The Fever double up the Lynx in the first quarter. It's Indiana 28, Minnesota 14.
Part of the story was the unlikely sources of production. Odyssey Sims, who came in as a hardship signing not long ago, finished with 15 points. That's not just filling space, it's coming off the bench and playing like someone determined to prove she still belongs at this level. Then there was Ariel Powers. With the Fever's lead threatened in the second half, she buried back-to-back threes that swung momentum firmly back to Indiana. That sequence changed the pace of the game. It wasn't just 6 points, it was the gut punch that reminded the Lynx this night wouldn't be theirs.
Indiana is 4 for 4 from three-point range. Mitchell connects on a 3. Sims leaning jumper is good.
Kelsey driving left, puts it in off the backboard.
Will to it for the first half. Indiana shoots 58% from the floor.
Natasha Howard deserves as much credit for that dominance as anyone. Her presence on both ends was felt every stretch she played, rebounding, switching on defense, hitting shots when possession stalled. She covered all those gaps that show up when a team is missing half its roster. Indiana's bench, the same bench people dismissed earlier in the year, became the glue that kept energy consistent. Instead of being overwhelmed by Minnesota's reputation, they looked like the deeper team. That's where the numbers start to underscore the moment. Indiana now sits at 24 wins against 20 losses. That record means something because it's the first time since 2015 the franchise has finished with a winning mark. 9 years of false starts, wasted opportunities, and rebuilds that never took hold. And now they finally look like the pieces are snapping into place. That kind of milestone isn't about celebrating mediocrity. It's about recognizing that a cultural reset has happened. The players know it, the coach knows it, The fans who kept showing up in Indianapolis all year know it.
Mitchell, open three. It's good. You can. Lexie Mitchell is a hooper.
Passes Dantas left corner three. Bullseye. Shot clock. Boston left block. Banks it in.
Clark was still right there in the mix, even in street clothes. Cameras caught her signaling for a timeout at one point, literally waving her hands like a coach on the sideline. She was calling coverages, giving out instructions, even joking with refs. Teammates looked at her for cues, and it gave off the sense that her impact hasn't slowed just because she can't suit up. Coach Kate isn't an official role, but she might as well have been wearing a polo during that game. So, was this victory a fluke? No chance. It was a controlled statement performance by a team that's no longer trying to survive, but is proving it belongs in playoff conversations even without its brightest star. And while the group effort was impressive, the story everyone kept talking about afterward wasn't just the team win. It was one individual moment of redemption. That moment belonged to Lexie Hull, and her showdown with Kayla McBride turned into one of the night's biggest talking points. What's more satisfying than a team proving people wrong? Seeing one player get the kind of personal payback fans have been waiting for Lexie Hull. That moment came the second she stepped on the floor against Minnesota. Just weeks earlier she'd been on the receiving end of Kayla McBride's elbow to the face. Blood on the court, confusion in the arena, and then the unbelievable twist. Refs hit Hull with a technical instead of punishing McBride. The whole scene turned a tough night into an outrageous one. Fans didn't just feel angry for her, they felt insulted on her behalf. It became another piece of evidence about the perception that Indiana doesn't get fair treatment.
Fever done with the MVP, okay? Bow, bow, bow! Hell yeah. You already know what it is. Dubs in the chat, you already know what it is. Woo! You already know what it is. Let's go to the playoffs and some momentum, baby.
So naturally, when the Fever drew Minnesota again, all eyes locked on Hull. Every Indiana fan wanted to know how she'd answer. Would she shy away from guarding McBride? Would she let that low point hang over her? Or would she flip it into something that sent the message loud and clear? The demand for some kind of justice hung over the game before the opening tip. This wasn't just another matchup, it was a test of character.
Here's Mitchell, I think that's a 2. Doesn't go. And now, it's McBride getting Hull. That one might be a problem. Indiana just taking shots to the face.
The responsibility on Hull already had jumped because of the roster chaos. With Sophie Cunningham down, she was suddenly the team's only healthy wing. That meant heavy minutes, more shots, and less margin for error. In the previous Minnesota game alone, she played close to 40 minutes while scoring 23 points. Her best performance yet in a Fever uniform. She didn't look like a fill-in anymore. She looked like a central piece, and the confidence showed in every drive, every jumper, every defensive rotation. She had built up all the momentum she needed before the moment actually arrived.
Tonight for Indiana, but then Bolton gives it right back, and Howard cashes in.
To perform like this, but they have 5 different players almost at all times who can bring the ball up the floor. Usually 4 or 5 were adept at making shots from deep. I mean, you just saw a big there creating her own look as well from Natasha Howard. Career high in terms of her field goal percentage, and you see her here, the little spin to the middle. That's a tough shot.
It came in the second quarter when Hull found herself matched up on McBride at the top of the key. One quick dribble to her left, a hesitation that sent McBride lunging. Her balance disappeared, her legs tangled, and the league's cameras captured what everyone in the arena instantly recognized. Kayla McBride had just been dropped and looked like her ankles took the brunt of it. The crowd roared, and within minutes the clip exploded across social media. Indiana fans called it karma, neutral fans called it hilarious. To Hull it was just basketball, but to everyone watching it was bigger than that. The reaction inside the building was electric. Teammates jumped out of their seats. Fans leaned forward, realizing they were witnessing payback in real time. That crossover wasn't revenge for an elbow. It was justice written out between 2 players in motion. Everyone who had been disgusted by that earlier technical foul now had a new clip to point to. Instead of being the victim, Hull flipped. the script and humiliated the same opponent who'd left her bloodied.
The Minnesota team we've grown accustomed to watching all season long.
Now, one thing to know. Vegas currently is the 3, but if they win out, they will be the 6.
Even beyond that one highlight, her defensive presence mattered throughout the game. She stayed glued to Minnesota's backcourt, forcing contested looks, deflecting passes, and disrupting their rhythm. Stat sheets don't always capture defensive grind, but anybody who watched could see that she was making it difficult for the Lynx guards to breathe. She turned those possessions into empty trips and helped limit the league's top team to one of their worst offensive outings of the year. That was just as important as the crossover moment, even if it didn't get the same viral treatment. What makes Hull's story resonate is that it mirrors Indiana itself, written off, underestimated, and hit with calls that made no sense, yet somehow finding a way to shine when it mattered most. The Fever keep being cast as the underdog, and just like Hull, they don't crawl into the background, they rise when the pressure stacks against them. Her highlight against McBride symbolized that spirit better than anything else could have. Lexie Hull's crossover wasn't just a clip to laugh at, it summed up how Indiana fought through every injury, every bad whistle, and every doubt that piled up this season. That single play captured the grit that carried them to their first winning record in nearly a decade. Now the Fever enter the playoffs with momentum, fans buzzing, and the promise of Clark's return shaping the future. This is where support matters most, so keep showing up, keep fueling that energy, because what we just saw isn't a fluke, it feels like the first real step in Indiana's climb back to relevance. Let's show some love for Lexie down in the comments below, like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen and we will see you in the next.